Whoa, like whoa. Hey, hey, hey.
Welcome to my channel, I'm Fate. If this is your first time, or you found your way back to me, it was Fate that brought us together. So without further ado, let's get to the deck. So we got some goblins going. I call it Gobro. If you ever watched Remonster, we'll go forward with the deck build here. We're going to start off with Dropkick Bomber. I like to call it, that's Dropkick Murphy, but it's Dropkick Bomber. Other goblins you control get 1/1. To the end of your turn, another target goblin you control gains flying, and when this creature deals combat damage, sacrifice it. That's going to be a very key component to this strategy, is the Horde Master. He's a goblin warrior. Other goblins you control get +1/+1. And whenever the Rundeville Horde Master or other goblin you control dies, exile the top card of your library. If it's a goblin creature, you may cast that card until the end of your next turn. So in a sense, this is kind of your gas. Now, what would goblins be if it wasn't for a nasty little horde? So we have horde makers. We have the Sear Slicer Goblin, which has a raid ability at the beginning of your end step. If you attacked this turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. And that even works if you don't have it on the field, you attack and then you play it in your second main phase, the goblin's still going to come out. And that becomes very important, as you see in some of the matches that I played. People like to key on it. No different they like to key on Squee. Alright, Squee has haste. And when he attacks, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. You may cast Squee from your graveyard by paying 3 colorless and 1 mountain, and exiling 4 other cards from your graveyard rather than paying its mana cost. Now, if you're looking over here and it's kind of looking like the standard mono red buff spells, I kind of stuck with it. I tried other things first, and then I went back to it, but we do need to fill up that graveyard so we can get doubly out of the Squee. The other goblins that we're running have very key things that they do inside of this build, and it's not like your standard goblins. So, for example, the Picnic Ruiner, alright? We know that once a card on the field, or a creature on the field has more than 4 attack, he gets double strike. Alright, I don't have any green in this deck to get his sorcery as a venture side of this ability. I just wanted his double strike. We're only running 3 of those. Alright, now the main part of this deck comes from right here. The Cacophony Scamp, alright, the Exuberant Fusiling, and the Reckless Lackey. Alright, so let me give you the lowdown here. We're wanting to hit this Exuberant Fusiling onto the field. Alright, he grows constantly. Alright, so he gets a 1/0 for each oil counter on it, and whenever it enters, and whenever another creature or artifact you control is put into the graveyard from battle, put an oil counter on it. So if you pop a treasure token, it gets an oil counter. It grows. If a creature dies, it grows. And guess what? We like when things die here. So we're going to use like the Cacophony Scamp. We're going to like attack with it as well as use this ability. We're going to get the proliferate out of it to make this little booger here grow even bigger. And it's going to trigger off the Horde Master. So you're getting double effects for things leaving the field or dying. And that's going to be a really good key component to this Goblins. And I encourage you to watch the gameplay, because on the very first match you're going to see in the gameplay, you're going to see exactly how this deck runs. And it's nasty. And we have a plethora of buff spells, but we have the buff spells in there that's going to give us back creatures, because like I said, we're going to lose creatures through sacrificing, through combat, and it's okay because we want to, because it's going to trigger off all the abilities that we have with our goblins. The Felonious Rage, the Monstrous Rage, because we got the Rage, and the Turn Inside Out. Now, the one oddball one that you're probably not used to is the Flee from Flesh. and target creature gets 2/2 until the end of the turn, and put 2 oil counters on it. Now that works off triggering off the Picnic Ruiner, but it also works really good with the Fusilier. I mean, it works amazingly with it. I won a lot of games off of this one little one drop that naturally has trample, and that's a good thing. We're running the Reckless Lackey in here because it's a goblin, but I do like the fact that it has first strike and haste. And when you got the Dropkick Bomber and the Horde Master on the field, you're sitting there usually looking like at a 3/4 with first strike. I mean, that's pretty nasty, but it's another card that's going to naturally sack itself at 3 to trigger off the Fusilier to grow, and to trigger off the Horde Master to help us get back to these later cards. And that's pretty much the deck in its gist. We can get double strike by using the pump spells on the Picnic Ruiner. We can get buffed naturally from the goblins that give the other goblins 1/1. And we're going to load the field up with little 1/1 creatures, which will also, when they die, make the Fusilier grow too. It's kind of classic goblin-y. Kind of. Now, I know you're thinking, with the new set and everything, what about the mob boss? Boom! This is what a sideboard's for, because this is a best of 3 deck. I don't play best of 1, even though it's a format on a Magic the Gathering arena. It's not a real Magic format. So I only build for best of 3, and we're going to stay with that. So we get the Lightning Burst over here. That's a new card out of the Foundations, which is a reprint. But it basically deals 2 damage to any target, so you can give it to them to their face. But if you use that kicker, which puts it at 5, and I hit 5 sometimes because I run 20 lands, you could do 4 damage to any target instead. So that's good. That's better than the shock. We have an extra Picnic Ruiner, just in case we want to go heavy gobby. So we have a heavy gobby package. An extra squee to make sure we go heavy gobby. And Krinko, the mob boss. Now, if we're running up against any type of those control decks or stall decks, Krinko goes immediately in. So what happens is you're going to put the Krinko in there. Now, we do have a way to give him haste, but let's just say that he comes in natural. It's cast natural. On the next turn, we're going to tap him. And we're going to let whatever our opponent is or doing just deal with the Horde. Because that's what's going to happen. We're going to have a Goblin Horde. And then every time one of those little goblins die from our little Goblin Horde, it's going to trigger off the other abilities that I spoke of earlier. And we're just going to just fish and dig through our deck until we find the right Horde Master to beat you. All right, back to the sideboard. I have Torch the Tower 2 times, Lightning Strike 3 times, and Uberas Forge. Now, Uberas Forge is an artifact, and at the beginning of your combat on your turn, put an oil counter on Uberas Forge. Then create X1 red Phyrexian Horde creature tokens with trample and haste, where X is the number of oil counters on Uberas Forge. Sacrifice that token at the beginning of your next end step. Now, where he's a plug and play is for the Fusilier. All right, so we're going to go back to that. Remember I told you, he has trample. He's a Phyrexian Goblin Warrior. All right, and he gets a +1 for every oil counter on him. And when it enters, or when another creature or artifact you control is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, put an oil counter on him. You see what I'm saying? If you don't see what I'm saying or smell what I'm cooking here, every time those little horror Phyrexians die, he grows even bigger. And all of a sudden, he turns from a little bitty Phyrexian Goblin Inflamed Warrior to a spark that ignites damage to their face. Love this card. I've been trying to get a deck for him since he came out. I tried every oil counter build deck possible, but now we have Gobbies, and he has found a home. So, for the introductions to the exuberant Fusilier Goblin deck, we're going to go into some matches and make our opponent take this Goblin damage.